And don't worry, the only person that's being recorded is me. All right. You don't have to worry about anybody seeing you. Anyways, welcome back. We're going to be talking about modules 48 and 50. So, we're going to be talking about infancy and childhood development and physical development. So, there are 6 major ideas that we're going to try to get through in this module, and there's 2 more modules we're going to be talking about. And again, if you can't write all the notes quickly enough, it's going to be recorded for you guys anyway, so you can always go back. So, don't worry. So, one of the things that we talked about previously was the idea of stranger anxiety, right? This begins around the months of 8 years old. This picture right here is comical for a couple of reasons, or I say one big reason, is that this gentleman looks like Santa Claus, right? Now, why do kids start freaking out and have stranger anxiety around the age of 8 months? Does anyone want to take a guess before I go ahead and give you an idea of why? Say that again. Man, Christian, I can't hear you, dude. It sounds like. All right, go ahead, Ms. Price.
I was just gonna say that they're like more used to their mom now, and that's the only thing that they've been able to see, so they're very confused and don't know why that's happening, so they just freak out.
That makes sense. And Christian, I'll go back to you, Ms. Price, in a minute. Christian, I am so sorry about. I know you had the answer, and I really do feel bad for you, but I can't hear you. It sounds like you're doing an auto-tune song, like you're, singing a hip hop song and you're doing the hook in auto-tune. But anyways, as Ms. Price was saying, around that time, kids have only seen the mom or dad their whole life. Think about it. At 8 months old, that is, they've only seen mom and dad their whole life. Take a moment and step back and go, dude, that's crazy. For their whole life, all they've seen is mommy and daddy. It also has to do a little bit with evolutionary psychology, too. Kids, young children, create a bond with their caretakers that's so intense, and they know that their survival depends on that single person, that they don't want to get away from them. So that has to do that has to do with the reason why kids have stranger anxiety at that age, around 8 months. Never mind the fact that it's very funny when you see these videos or pictures of kids sitting in Santa Claus's lap and they're all just freaking out or laughing. I encourage you guys to go on Google and do an image search for epic Christmas picture fails, and you'll be seeing a lot of these kind of pictures of kids just freaking out and crying. All right. So let's talk about attachment. Attachment, obviously, you can see is an emotional one that's created between the child or the infant and their caretaker. What you see right here in this picture is an experiment that was conducted way back. They got monkeys, and I know it sounds messed up, but imagine if they did this to an actual person, not animals. What they did is they created 2 different monkeys. One of the monkey robots was the one you see that looks like it has some sort of fur. This is the one that it would go to for warmth, but it did not feed it. It just provided what seemed like love. The other figure there, I guess it looks like a really messed up robot. As you can see right here, has a bottle, a milk bottle. This is the one that actually would feed the monkey and give it nurture or nutrition. Crazy thing is, the monkey would prefer to hug this one right here because it wanted contact. And it would go there to eat, but it wouldn't hang out with that monkey at all, which is insane. Which goes to show you how deeply rooted it is for animals who have connection and want to be able to be next to their parent or their caretaker. They want to be next to them so much. Never mind that they may not feed them, but they want that warmth and they want that love. All right. So again, there is a need for body contact. There is a need for body contact. And this man was Harry Harlow, and these were the studies that were conducted with these primates or these monkeys. Now, that's pretty messed up if you ask me, but it just goes to prove to you guys how important human physical contact is, or how important it is for animals that are social to have contact with other animals. A lot of times you might see monkeys or primates out in the wild, and you see them grooming themselves, picking, I don't know, lice or ticks off of their fur. They're doing it not just to groom, but they're hanging out. They're bonding. I know it sounds a little bit crazy, right? So again, where does where do the origins of attachment come from? It's whatever's familiar to you or to that person, whether it's what's being taken care of or the caretaker. There is what is known as a critical period. This is a time of life where an animal or a human being bonds with their caretaker. There is a classic episode. Well, it is classic now because it doesn't come out on TV anymore. Modern Family, that interesting show. Phil Dunphy and his wife Claire. Phil Dunphy wanted to make sure that he had like some duck eggs. And what he wanted to do is he wanted to be the first thing that the ducks saw so that they would create an attachment to him, sort of like the critical period. What happened was it was actually Claire who was a person that saw that the duck saw first, and he got really pissed off. And then throughout the rest of the episode, the ducks just followed her. And he's like, I hate you for this. Well, not really. You can't really hate your wife. Anyways, so that is what is the critical period. Now, imprinting is also what happened with the animals. These ducks had their attachment imprinted with on them by seeing Claire Dunphy first because they were the first ones that they saw. And this is known as a sensitive period. Any questions so far? By the way, remember, you can always just go ahead and raise your hand virtually. You can go ahead and say something in the chat box. I'll always leave it open for you guys. Or you can just go ahead and unmute your microphone. All right, here are some differences. A lot of times when we're talking about temperament and parenting, let me go ahead and take a look at my notes so I don't mess up. We have to talk about some ideas and some words. We need to talk about what temperament is before I even get to this point right here. You know what? I'm going all over the place, but there are two kinds of attachments a child might make. There's one that's known as a secure attachment, and there's one known as an insecure attachment. When kids go to daycare for the first time or preschool the first time, we all know, maybe you guys remember this. I remember it when I went to preschool. I remember the teacher, that's who it was, grabbed me because I kept holding on to my mom, and I even broke her nails because she was trying to grab me. There are two kinds of attachments that kids have because I was trying to run away and she was trying to grab me. That's why. But at the same time, like, if you know you're dealing with kids, why would you want to have big nails? Yeah, I know. It was the 80s. They didn't think that way. Anyways, when a kid sees that their mother has left, some of them might cry, right? And then when mom comes back, they will hug her. That's known as a secure attachment. You know, they've bonded pretty well with the mother or father or caretaker. Insecure attachment would be whereas the kid is left by their caretaker, and when they come back, they don't care. That is bad. That is really bad. So again, here you have a graph that tells you the percentage of infants who cry when their mother is left. And as you can see, the ones right here, the ones that are in daycare tend to have not cared so much because they're used to it. But the ones who stayed home all the time are the ones that end up crying a lot. The one bad thing of many things, of a long litany list of bad things that COVID brought, was I was not able to put my daughter into a preschool when she turned 2. That was the plan. Studies show that when kids have early childhood education, they do better in school and in life. I myself am a product of preschool. I went from the age of 2 all the way to around 5 because back then they didn't have a transitional kindergarten. But we ain't gonna do that, homie, because we don't want to get COVID. So she had to stay here. Maybe in this fall. But anyways, I predict she's going to cry a lot when she goes to preschool. So what is a temperament? It's a person's characteristics, how they react, how intense their reactions are. I told you guys about the temperament that my 2-year-old daughter has. She's super quiet, super serious, doesn't like talking. That's the kind of temperament that the Perez side of the family has, my dad's side of the family has. The Barraza side of the family, which is my mom's side of the family, Dude, they are very passionate. They love talking and they talk really loud and really fast. Whereas my dad's side of the family, they're more mellow, they're slow to anger, and they're just chill. So again, these kind of temperaments, this is what we're talking about, right? So a lot of times you can tell what kind of temperament a baby or a person is going to have early in life. Put it this way, if you talk to your parents, and these are conversations that are always fun to have with your parents, you can always ask them how you were as a child, as a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 year old, and tell them, how have I changed? How am I still the same? And boy, oh boy, they will tell you all about it, right? So let's go ahead and continue. So let's talk about trust. So this right here is we're talking about Eric Erickson, which why would his parents name him Eric if his last name is Erickson? That makes no sense, right? That's pretty messed up. Anyways, let me go ahead and take a look through my notes. Oh yeah, a lot of stuff to talk about right there. So Erickson is saying that when a child is cared for, when a child knows that he is cared for and provided for and he's going to be safe, he knows he has something known as basic trust, which basically helps to form them better in the world. This picture right here is of a child who is in an orphanage. Back in the 90s, I remember seeing the documentary. This is how much of a nerd I was when I was a little kid. I watched documentaries instead of watching cartoons. There was a news documentary. It was an orphanage in Romania. Visualize in your head a room half the size of the mini gym at Golden West, and there was nothing but, as you can see, cribs. And the babies, the children were just there by themselves. They had this look on their faces, this dead look, and it's really sad. And because no one held them at all. One of the reporters got one of the kids and started holding him. And the kid was like really loved that he was being held. And when he was going to put the child down, the child just held on because he wanted to be held on. You guys, we all know, especially in these times of COVID when we got to be away from each other, we as human beings crave that contact with other people. It's something that we need, we always want. What's really messed up is that children at that age, they're not getting it. Oh, dude, that's just really, really messed up. So, what happens when you get deprived from attachment? And this is a picture of that orphanage. As you can see, the faces of these kids, they didn't develop as well. That ends up affecting a child's mental ability to function properly later on in life. Their growth emotionally is stunted. Their IQ levels go down. And in a way, it sounds messed up to say it, but in a way, the body sort of knows I'm not wanted. So what's the point of continuing? There's a reason why prenatal babies, the ones that are born early, there's a reason why they get volunteers, obviously before COVID. There's a reason why they get volunteers to hold them and hug them. Because when they, and again, it sounds weird and it sounds like maybe it sounds like a hippie talking to you right here, but they know that they're wanted. And they've proven, they have studies that show that preemie babies that are held gain more weight and are more healthy than babies that did not get held at all. Daycare. Now, does daycare affect attachment of a child? That's an interesting question. You can go either way. Now, I would say this right here that there are benefits to daycare. The kids are interacting socially with kids, their age group, their peers. They are learning new things. Also, they're giving mommy and daddy a break for having to watch them all the time. That's a joke, by the way. You guys can laugh. It's totally okay. The one thing about daycare that might be a little bit bad is that they also pick up bad habits, i.e., swear words, biting, kicking, and all that negative stuff. So again, like everything in life, there are pros and cons. But I would say that there are more pros to sending a child to daycare. Now, one of the things that a child has to develop in order to mature is develop something known as the self-concept. A lot of times when children are younger, they don't have any idea who they are. They just go, well, what the heck? They just exist. Basically, at that age, all they are eating and pooping machines because that's all they do. Eat and poop, eat and poop. Eventually, they start grabbing more things, they start doing more stuff. But eventually, you start noticing the kids start asking themselves, "Who am I? What am I doing?" And again, this develops when the kids have developed more mentally, and it allows them to be able to think more abstractly. So, talking about self-esteem and being aware of themselves. Oh, I love this one right here. Parenting styles. Um, there are three interesting parenting styles. Let me go ahead and give you guys exactly what they are. So, authoritarian, put it this way, it's the parent that says, here are the rules, you need to obey all the time or else. Those of us that have Hispanic parents, you know how it is. I got the belt, and if you don't pay attention to me, I'm going to get you. If you happen to be Portuguese, the wooden spoon, right? Those are the kind of parents that are authoritarian. There's no room for flexibility. You do as you're told, and that's basically it, right? That's one style. Permissive is the one that's really bad, in my opinion, right? It's the kind of parent that would allow their child to do whatever they wanted. Oh, you want to have ice cream for dinner? Go ahead. That's weird. You want to go ahead and shave your eyebrows because Vanilla Ice did it back in the 1990s? Go ahead. You guys have no idea who Vanilla Ice is, but it's okay. Some people do. Yeah, he shaved his eyebrow right here. So that's what he did. Anyways, and then there's a combination of both of those called authoritative. I can't even pronounce it, but this one right here. I had a bunch of onion for lunch and it's made my tongue a little bit numb, so I'm having a little hard time pronouncing. But this one right here is sort of a mixture of both of these right here. The first year that I taught AP psychology, one of my students gave a really great example of what this style is like right here. It's a combination of this one and this one. Think of it this way. This permissive is free range. You can let them go wherever they want, right? Authoritarian is where you got the child, or basically you got somebody in a cage where they can't even move at all. And this one right here is you give the kid like maybe a 10 by 10 yard or maybe 100 by 100 feet yard and say, all right, you can do whatever you want here, but you got to stay here. All right. So the way I would also describe it is it's demanding and responsive. All right. So which of these is the best one? Again, that's an opinion right there, but I will just go ahead and move the mouse over the one I think is the best one. And I'm just going to say that, right? Obviously, most of you guys, and I would just venture to guess, most of you guys have been subject to this kind of parenting style because I'm very biased here because you guys are my AP Psych students. You guys know you have rules and you know how to follow the rules, but you also have freedom and you know you have responsibilities, right? So for me, this one, good. All right. And again, not just for this AP class, but this is also life advice if you think about it. All right. Let's go ahead and continue. There are differences in terms of culture in raising children. Obviously, different cultures ask or think different things are okay when it comes to child rearing. As we know, in different parts of the world, like maybe Latin America, maybe Africa, maybe Asia, there are some parenting styles that are very authoritative. And a lot of times, those kind of cultures see it okay to utilize a lot of corporal punishment, which is normal, right? I guess that's how it is. Other cultures around the world see corporal punishment as a negative and to not be used. And those of you guys that obviously, again, have the Hispanic last names or come from a Hispanic family always know of the dreaded chancla, which is that sandal, right? Whatever reason, a mom knows how to throw that chancla from across the room and hit you on the head. Sounds weird, but I feel so proud because for the first time in my life, I was able to do that across the room and hit them on the head. It's a joke, by the way. Trying to see if you guys are awake, okay? Let's talk about, before we go to that, does anyone have any questions about 48? And again, don't freak out if you're not able to copy all the notes right here. I mean, it'd be nice if you could do all the notes right now, discussion notes, but there's a reason why I'm recording this for you guys so you can go back to it later. All right, questions. Anybody want to say anything else? Anybody disagree with me? Nobody want to say anything about me growing out my beard? It's a joke, by the way. Just trying to keep you guys awake, man. All right, let's talk about gender development. So, gender is a socially constructed role and characteristic that has to do nothing with sex at all. I'm not talking about the reproductive action. I'm talking about like sex. This right here is we're talking about what does a culture define as male and female. Okay, these are roles assigned to you. All right, that people take. A lot of the times, which of these genders you are defined as will influence how you develop socially. All right. We know that at an early age, there are certain activities that males are permitted to do or socially accepted, and there are certain activities that females are socially accepted to do. So, as you see in this picture, boys, let me go back, boys are encouraged to go outside and play and get messy, right? Boys will be boys. Whereas we expect the girls to stay there, play with bubbles, and just chill and play with dolls, right? Yeah, I guess. But at the same time, I don't care if I want my kids to get dirty. I want them to play with dolls, whatever it is. Just do whatever you got to do, right? Again, I'm weird. It's different. It's 21st century, but this is just how it is, right? But remember, gender is just what's created by the culture that determines what is male and female characteristics. So, how are we alike in terms of genders? How are we different? Okay. So, in terms of gender, I will tell you right now that in aggression, we're talking about aggression could be anything. It could be some sort of physical um, confrontation or behavior. It could also be verbal. Now, listen to what I'm about to tell you right here. Both males and females are equally aggressive. Both equally aggressive. But you might ask yourself, Perez, how come they're all back when the pandemic hit, before the pandemic hit? Why was it only guys that got suspended all the time? What was it only guys that fought? Like, well, I said equal aggression. I didn't say what kind of aggression. That's different. Males tend to be physically aggressive because that is socially permitted, and that's the kind of roles that they have to conform to. Females are verbally aggressive, and those of you here in the class that are ladies know exactly what I'm talking about. As we say in the Mexican culture, chismes, gossip, right? That's how it is, right? Guys, we're more physical. Girls are more aggressive in terms of um, words, verbal. So again, these right here are just talking about gender and social power. Let's go ahead and keep talking about this right here. What else do I have that you need to know? And some of this has to do with the need for human beings to categorize themselves. So a lot of the times, why are people aggressive? They want to know who belongs on what hierarchy within the social group, right? And again, it sounds like we're wolves in a wolf pack, right? But a lot of the times, people engage in these aggressive behaviors to try to establish their dominance within that social group, right? So we know with a group of friends, they'll fight each other, roughhouse, and the stronger one tends to be the alpha male, right? And the same thing happens in a group of girls or females. They'll be aggressive in terms of verb or talking to try to establish who is more dominant within that group. All right. The nurture of gender in our culture. So again, what is a gender role? This is what you're expected to do if you're a boy or a male. This is the kind of expectations or behaviors you're expected to follow if you are a female. Right at the top of my bald head, I can tell you right now that a lot of the times males, and I'm talking about like really old, back in the old days, males were the ones that were expected to court the lady. And the role that the woman had was to stay at home and wait for the gentleman to come a calling. What does that mean? Basically, the woman would stay at her house, at her parents' house, and if the guy would roll up to the house, knock on the door, says, "Excuse me, sir, I come to call on your daughter," which means I want to talk to your daughter like romantically. And either one of the parents would say yes or no. And if they say yes, you would talk in the living room. Weird, right? Just really weird. Those are the kind of roles they had back then. One of the more interesting ones that I have found was the Amish. They're a very interesting society because what they would do is to allow the kids to date, they would let them sleep in the same bed, and they would they would tie the guy up in a sack, like sew him up in a sack, and they would put him on one side of the bed with a board, and the girl would be on the other side, like just talking to him, and they would spend the night together. But he was in a bag. I don't know. It just popped in my head. That's just weird, man. So again, gender and child rearing. We know that for the most part, um, males are not the ones that are seen by society as being the primary caretakers, right? They're not seen as the primary caretakers. That is a social and gender role that's been passed down for thousands of years. That's just how it's always been. Luckily for us, that's changing now. Okay, it's not just the same. Men are as capable as changing a diaper as women. The one thing we can do is feed the children from our own bodies. We can't do that, but that's what they make bottles for, right? So again, let's talk about something known as gender identity. Okay, so again, this is talking about, does a person sense that they are male or female? Okay, a lot of times we know more recently it's thankfully we are changing our attitudes in terms of genders, and it's becoming a little bit more socially accepted. Not completely, but it's becoming a little bit more socially accepted by certain parts of society. Now, again, we're talking about gender identity. Now, gender typing is the acquisition of traditional masculine and female roles. So, are you getting this role as a male or a female? Now, again, when we're talking about this kind of idea, the social learning theory is the idea that we learn the behaviors of our gender, or the one we want to use or affiliate with, by observing the behavior and copying other people that are the same gender that we think we are, or that has been assigned to us. For example, as a child myself, I would see my dad and the neighbors and all my family hang out in the backyard drinking liquid bread out of a can all night long. And we always, if you guys don't know what that means, you guys should know what that means. And us, the boys, would want to be just like the guys because they were like men. And what we would do the next day is we would get the empty cans and just sit around the table and say, "Oh, yes, compa. Oh, yes, we're doing this. Oh, yeah, that was over there." Again, we were learning our social roles as males by observing males that were older than us and trying to imitate them. And again, just a piece of advice: if you have younger siblings, and when you grow up older and have kids, your kids are going to watch everything you do. So you're going to be an example, a role model 24/7. That's scary. Even when you're sleeping, they're going to watch you. They will watch you sleep. You think I'm joking, but they do. Continuing. And then another term right here that you guys need to be aware of is the term transgender. This older iteration of this textbook has a very vague definition of what transgender is, but the newer one has a more nuanced definition and goes into it more detail. But again, we're talking about is people who believe that their gender identity differs from what they were assigned at birth as a male or female. So again, remember, sex is what you're born with. Gender identity role is something that's assigned. Don't get those confused, okay? Because a lot of times in society tries to pigeonhole people into certain roles and certain genders from what society believes it is, okay? That's different from sex at birth, all right? Module 50, this will be the last one. Parents, peers, and early experiences. Two different small one objectives for this one. All right, Miss Price, go for it.
I just have a question about non-binary. Are we going to talk about it all in this section of the book, or is that not really mentioned in the textbook?
The textbook's a little bit older, so they don't really mention it a lot. I was, and this is the truth, I was petitioning the principals the middle of last school year. I know that has nothing to do with this, but I'm just letting you know, to go ahead and get the new textbook, and then COVID hit. So yeah, because the new textbook actually has all the units organized properly. I don't know if you guys notice, as it seems like we're jumping back and forth through the textbook. It's not intentional. It's just I had to do it that way to make a mesh. One last thing on that. prior to last school year, there were 14 modules. There were 14 units. 14 units. And right now we only have 9. So it's better this way. I'm just telling you it's better this way. It's easier for us, okay? Anyways, sorry, I got on a tangent here. All right, let's talk about your parents, your peers, and your early experiences. So this picture right here is very telling. As you can see, this mouse has been given food. It has nutrition, it has water, and it has somewhat space to exercise. They got its brain cells, and they looked at how many neural connections were in the brain. And as you can see right here, it looks decent. But then they got all these mice with a lot of food, even more play equipment, but there were more mice. Look at the neural connections of one single mouse. There's a reason why we as human beings want to be around other human beings. It helps us to grow. It helps us to learn. Your brain develops more. If you're just by yourself, it's going to mess up your brain. And again, right here, we are seeing a brain of a person or an individual who has just been by themselves and someone who is around more people, okay? This goes to the whole idea. There are some neurons in our brain called mirror neurons that help us to copy the behavior of other people. So if you're just by yourself all the time, those mirror neurons never get triggered. Sounds like a tongue twister, right? So how much credit or blame do our parents deserve? That sounds messed up. But again, who you are today, who you will be, how much can you credit to your parents? How much can you blame them? The relationship that we as human beings have with our parents is a very complex relationship. Me being a parent now, I can tell you right off the bat that, trust me, you'll understand this when you finally become a parent. Now I understand a lot of things that my parents did when I was younger. Why did they do this? Why were they this way? Why couldn't I do that? Now as a parent of a soon-to-be 13-year-old, a 3-year-old, and about to have another baby, I can see it. But you're not going to like it even though they're doing it now to you. But you'll understand it when you're older. Just understand this from a parent's point of view. You got to give them credit and got to give them props. Sometimes they do the best they can. All right. But let's keep talking about this idea right here. Oh, it was all just basically opinion, I guess, or conjecture right here. So a lot of times we can't credit our parents a lot with what we do in our lives. We do know that our parents help us to grow and nurture us and help us become the people who we are today. We can most of the time attribute our successes in life to their help. But on the other side, sometimes we can also attribute a person's failures to the failings of the parent. Okay. Obviously, there are outliers all the time because there are people who had really bad parents, but despite that, still succeeded in life and did really well. But then if you look at the other side of the coin, there are people who had parents who were very loving and had all the resources in the world, but never succeeded and did bad in life. So again, it's one of those that almost takes on a philosophical tone. It all depends also on the person, right? And again, it goes back to that argument I'm going to keep telling you about nature versus nurture. All right. Some people are always are destined to fail no matter if you give them all the resources in the world. And some people are destined to succeed no matter what circumstances in their life. So just be aware of that. Your peers. What is peer influence? It's basically your friends who you hang out with on a daily basis. They influence what you do and how you behave and what you eat and what you view. All right. It's a little bit messed up right now because your peers' influence is maybe waned a little bit because they're not around, right? But we do know that the people you hang around with, and this is a piece of advice, the people you hang around with say a lot about you as a person. Think about that. They can either do this to you, bring you up, or they can bring you down. I'm not saying don't hang out with people that won't bring you back up, but it's something to be aware of, right? Because peers do influence you a lot. All right. The saying goes, I will tell you who you are if you tell me who you hang by. I can tell who you are by the people you hang out with. So just put it that way, okay? And I know there's always outliers and there's always exceptions to that rule, but it is what it is. All right. That's it for this slide right here. I'm going to exit. Let me go ahead and end the recording. Oh, my bad. Let me go ahead and end the recording right here.